We are back with another episode of Buy the House, Build the Home. Betty, who are you introducing today?
Okay, so I'm very, very excited. Today we are talking all things home staging. I'm so excited to dive into this, and I want to introduce Victoria Martinez. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your business. How long have you been in staging?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I am the owner of decluttering Home and Design, and we are in our full third year of business, and we serve all of the Dallas and Fort Worth area and beyond.
And beyond.
I love that. What got you into home staging?
So it really, honestly, was something that just fell on my lap. We do some building. We were doing some development in the Lake Tawakoni area.
Okay.
And the developers asked if I would stage one of the units. And I really was not very familiar with the home staging process, and so I did some research, and I ended up doing a training and certified in the home staging, and then I hit the ground running with that one unit. Was the only staged property that I had for about 6 to 8 months. I fell in love with the idea of home staging, and it just came natural for me. From there, other real estate agents started to reach out to me and asking me if I would stage their properties. So I started doing some stagings in the Rockwall area, and then in Dallas and Sherman, and it just kind of spread from there. Last year, we just saw an uptick in home staging for our services, and then this year was our busiest year yet. So
Yeah, I have personally used you. I have a listing currently that we had you stage, and you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
I went in to check on a few things and did an open house there, and I was like, wow, it was a very difficult space. And one of the hardest things I think for a buyer can be to visualize what this could look like. For some people, it's easy. They can go in and see a blank canvas and be like, oh, this will go here, this will go here. But especially when some of the spaces are a little tricky, it can be difficult. And home staging has been a very helpful way to help a buyer visualize, see what they could do with the space. And I usually have people be like, can we buy some of that furniture?
Yeah. Sure, we get that a lot.
Yeah.
And we have sold some of our some of our inventory actually.
Is available for sale.
Yeah,
That's great.
some of it is, not all of it, but some of it is for sale. And sometimes we want to help the property sell, so we'll coordinate with the real estate agent and ask, do you think that this would really be helpful for the sale of this property? And if they come back and say, yeah, we really do think that the buyers are really interested in it. So we'll try to do as much as we can to help sell that property. And if that includes selling off our inventory, we'll do what we can to help our real estate agents in selling that property.
I remember when we were purchasing this house, it was staged, and we wanted the curtains. I was like, can I keep the curtains? And they're like, sure, go for it. But I love that. When we were talking about staging, I'm assuming a lot of times you're staging empty houses, but do you sometimes do like partial staging or going in and helping somebody that already has all their things in the house, but kind of like strip it back appropriately so you really bring the space to life? I would love to hear the different approaches to those things.
Absolutely. We do that quite often. And there's specific reasons for not staging a vacant home. Many times the homeowner isn't ready to move out. They haven't found the right home. Sometimes they're waiting to sell their own property before they can move out. So it's very common to stage an occupied home. And so when that happens, we come in and we'll do a consultation with the homeowner, and many times alongside with the real estate agent, and keeping them included in the game plan for the staging plan for an occupied home. And what that entails is coming in and sitting with the homeowner and also doing a walkthrough throughout the home to see what can we do to maybe edit some spaces, maybe help the homeowner get pre-packed for their move, and just get a jump start on that. When we are able to reduce some of the personal belongings in the home, it opens up the spaces throughout the home and helps us to be able to better highlight specific spaces in that home for the marketing. also it helps in the photos, plays a really huge part in the marketing on the MLS listings. And so really staging an occupied home is very common, and it actually is a very easy process to do.
Are you using a mixture of your items and their items, or do you try to just use their items when you stage? What does that look like?
Sure. We take the homeowner's feelings and thoughts into that before we make recommendations. Many times we have to remember that the homeowner, foremost and most importantly, is that the homeowner feel comfortable in their own home, right? And so we want to make sure that they're okay if we bring in additional artwork or furniture pieces or decor items. And so whatever works best for the homeowner, that's what we'll try to entail a staging design for them. We also will make recommendations to modify some of the spaces. For example, maybe they have some furniture misplaced and that doesn't really best highlight that room, and so we'll make some modifications and moving furniture around, and along with making recommendations to bringing in maybe some area rugs or some artwork or some decor. And so just being able to do a walkthrough on site and design a specific staging for that home, keeping in mind that the homeowner is still going to be living there, is really important.
Yeah. I definitely think their comfortability level is of the utmost importance. As a realtor, often the sellers will be like, what should I do? And I always start with declutter, clean, but it can be very helpful to have a stager come in. And, I've had to do it before. Like, if I were you, I would get that recliner out and put it in the garage. I know your husband loves it, but it's terrible. But
the wives rejoice.
But sometimes that can be tough to hear. And so I think your delivery and just taking into consideration what would you feel comfortable with. But it does make a very big difference specifically for photos. There's virtual staging right now where people go on and it's fake. You walk in and it's empty, but they have virtual staging. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I see the benefit because it just helps those put together the dots in their heads of where their furniture would go and everything. But I love having a stager come in that can kind of give a very professional eye of, oh, here's what we should do with this. And going back to Shelby's question with, do you have your own pieces you would bring in? Like, do you just have a set amount that you kind of pull from, or do you go and then buy a piece for a specific home? Like, what does that process look like for you?
In the beginning, when I was getting my staging business off the ground, we did buy a lot of inventory according to the number of home stagings that we had scheduled. We tried not to buy anything until we had a specific space for it or a specific home for that. And that was one way that we were able to keep our overhead costs down in the beginning. Moving forward, we have grown so large in the 3 years that we're now in a 1,400 square foot warehouse, which is very small in comparison to some of the larger home staging businesses out there. But being able to coordinate and erect some shelving for our inventory was very, very important for us to house as much inventory as we are currently. So in that 1,400 square foot warehouse, we actually have enough inventory to stage 15 consecutive homes, which is quite a lot to fit in a 1,500 square foot warehouse. So you can imagine strategically placing shelving was very important for us. So we have a large inventory that we can choose from. So we're not buying as much pieces as we were in the beginning. So we have quite a bit of inventory to choose artwork from, decor, area rugs, furniture pieces. So we have quite a bit. However, sometimes we have specific homes that we don't quite have the specific or the right piece of artwork that I want to see on a wall. And so in that case, I do not hesitate on purchasing a piece that will coordinate really well for the home and help highlight a specific area for it.
That's awesome.
I love that. How do you choose? I have a two-part question. how do you choose what pieces are going in the home, in the sense of design matching maybe with the home itself or with the owner's items, if it's a combination stage? And or there's been times where I will walk a vacant home and it's staged, but it's only maybe staged in like a living room, dining room, and then the master bedroom or something. Is that this is the second part of the question. Is that based on budget? Is that based on we have just found that if you can get these 3 or 4 rooms staged, people can kind of have vision for the rest of the house? How do you determine that? So the first one is, how do you determine what is going in the house, like picture type, couch type, and then what rooms do you determine to stage?
Sure, and I love that question because there's a lot of items that we take into factor in doing a design for a staging. So one of the main factors that we look at is the home stay occupied or is it vacant. So if the home, let's start with an occupied home. So we consider the current style of the homeowner already has implemented in that home. What do I have in my inventory that would coordinate or help highlight some of those existing styles that the homeowner has? That's number one. Okay. That would be where we start from. We also take into account the age of the home, the style of the home, architectural features, before we bring anything into the home. So we start with a staging design in my office, and so I consider those factors in creating a design for the home. Awesome. Then also we go from there, we start to choose what is going to be our coordinating color. We start with a neutral palette, and then we had pops of color, just to keep it lively and a happy space and an inviting environment for the potential buyers to come in and just really fall in love with the home. And so that's an area that we pay really close attention to. And then in the fact that when you're moving forward, and I'm so sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Okay. I know, sorry. I asked so much in one moment. That was my fault.
I had it in my head and then I lost it.
Good. It is all good. The second part of my question was, how do you choose which rooms to stage, especially when it's vacant? Because I have found that sometimes when I walk into a vacant home that's staged, it's every room, but a lot of times there's like some main rooms that are
absolutely. Done. Where should I start?
I would start, is it budget related?
Okay.
And or is it more of just a feel for the home? Sure. Or what you have found as a home stager really kind of ends up helping people cast the vision and sell the home?
So in regards to how many rooms we decide to stage, some of it is based on budget factor. Okay. One of the questions that we ask before we take on a staging project is, what is the budget? Yeah. But along with that, we also want to make sure that we're matching, or our staging design is matching the listing price, is also very, very important. Yeah. So those two take precedent over our design. So once we have all of that information implemented, then we come in and we do a consultation on a vacant staging. So that consists of doing a on-site walkthrough. Okay. And so in the walkthrough, immediately we're running through our head, what is the potential buyer going to think of this space as soon as they walk into the home? Because we have approximately 30 seconds for the potential buyer to decide if they want to continue to see the rest of that home. And going further than that, we actually have about 10 seconds for the potential buyer to decide if they like the home or not. So we want to pay close attention to the first few rooms that they walk into, consisting of the entryway, usually a formal dining area, living space, the kitchen is very important, and primary bedroom. So how do we decide how many spaces we're going to stage in a home really is determined by the overall size of the home. So in respect to a 2,500 square foot home, usually we're looking at about 3 bedrooms, 1 living space, and a formal dining. So we would recommend about 5 to 6 rooms. if the home has a studio built in, or maybe, a study built in to the home, or an office, then we absolutely want to capture that in addition to a primary bedroom. So we're usually try to stay at about 60 to 70% of the home being staged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that.
Yes, I have found it's primarily not every single room.
Right.
And it's for that purpose. But the beginning, when you first walk in, that is where you really want to capture. And for the photos, it's the same thing, right? You don't start on the MLS listing and put a photo of one of the
Middle bedrooms. Yeah.
Right. You're
Sure.
going to start with probably the exterior of the home if that looks good. And
Yeah,
that's
we're
real.
hoping.
But also then like the areas that you really want to highlight. And I have found there's one of my listings that has a little extra room in it that nobody really knew what to do with.
Yeah.
They built it off the garage. And we just decided to put down a yoga mat and some weights and like a
cute.
plant.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, like a little workout room. And then it can get their wheels turning like, this could be a playroom for my kids. Or, I could make this an office. There's no window, but, we could do this, or we could just make it a storage unit. So sometimes just doing those little things really helps open up like the potential, especially for weird spaces, or like you said, an office. You do want a desk in there.
Yes.
Like a desk, a little succulent, and a rug and a chair, and it just changes everything.
It's really important to be able to identify the spaces for your potential buyers.
Yeah.
As soon as you're able to do that, they start envisioning themselves and what they would do, or if they would keep it that way or do something different. And that's really what we want. We want to invoke that thought process with a potential buyer, because most likely once they start making those connections, an emotional connection to the home, and start envisioning themselves there, you're most likely going to, they're going to want to live there. And so that's really what we're pushing for when we design a staging.
Yeah. So often emotions sell the home.
100%.
I would say typically the only time I see where it's just more logic is like investors, and they're running numbers and they're really not attached. But people that are moving into a home or out of a home, it's all emotions. When we chatted on the phone prior to the podcast, I know you talked about colors and some of the psychology around colors. I would love for you to dive into that. Like, have you noticed a trend on maybe what does help sell or what excites people, things like that? I would just absolutely love your feedback on the colors.
Absolutely. In my own services, I have noticed that pops of color are really appreciated by potential buyers, and it's one of the main feedbacks that we get on our staging services is how we were able to really coordinate our colors throughout the home, not wanting them to play primary in the vision of the home staging, but as secondary. And so it's really important to be able to know which colors to bring in. Prime example is Pebble Creek. So Pebble Creek is a beautifully designed home. The architectures did a great job. Late 1970s, mid-century style home. And so it was really important for us to implement some of that mid-century style, but not go overboard with it, still staying on the modern side in it. But because there was the lighter brown tones implemented throughout the home, as far as the front door and the mantle, the flooring, and throughout the home had some really beautiful earth tone browns in it. And so the immediate color I went to was some gold and some touches of yellow, and I think it really helped brighten the home up. And so it kind of really emotionally sets off some happiness for potential buyers, and I think it worked really well for the home.
Yeah. There is psychology behind the colors. Like red and yellow are often used for fast food restaurants. McDonald's.
Don't they make you eat more?
It's like
it's something to that effect.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's
so
crazy.
Don't put red in your kitchen if you're trying to diet.
That was a whole thing though, where they made the kitchens red. But no, it is crazy, and it feels a bit more inviting and happy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and then in other homes that might feel a little sterile, a little like you can bring in more of the earthy, warm tones to if there's stark white walls.
Yes.
Or if the floors are super dark, I guess the coloring really does matter. It really does. It's crazy. And for the photos, that to me is the most important thing. I tell people the photos, because 99.999% of people are looking online first.
Yes.
And I had a listing that was previously listed. The agent, I've shared this before, the agent took the pictures on her iPhone. They were terrible quality that like you couldn't, and I'm like, man, this is this is really, really bad. And a staging company can really help with the photos, the way the photos come out. It's like, wow. And so much of what you're looking at is that furniture. Not necessarily it is the room.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because if you notice that a vacant home on the MLS photos, you will only have 1 or 2 photos of each space. Maybe 2 pictures max of the living room, a picture or 2 of the dining room and the kitchen. But with a staged home, you will find multiple photos of one area.
Space.
So you could find about 3 to 4 photos of the living room, and so on and so on and so on. So you actually are giving your potential buyer a really clear view of what they can do with that home before they ever decide to go visit it. And most likely, because you have so many more photos on the MLS listing, it is going to prompt them to want to go see that specific listing.
Yeah.
I have seen, on the flip side, I've seen some pretty poorly staged homes where and it went back to what you were sharing about the style of the home. Are we talking mid-century, modern? What year was it built? What is, if it is already has furniture in it, what kind of current furniture do you have? But where they try to do too many things, and I'm like, you've got like the barn thing happening along with the mid-century modern, plus you threw in, and it's like, this almost makes it worse. So I think if you are going to stage, make sure to have a really good company that can make it, because the point is to add to and not to take away from. And the point is to draw attention to those areas that can be a little bit more difficult. Entryways are really big ones. Just having a little entry table and a mirror. I mean, it's like, oh wow, that just changed everything.
Sure.
And we're even removing some things from the entryway. I've done that with a few clients where I'm like, you have too much going on right here.
Right.
People are going to feel overwhelmed when they walk in instead of able to breathe. I always like that feeling. I want them to be able to breathe.
And in the world of DIYers, we run into that quite often as home stagers. And I'm sure you do also as real estate agents. And it's really our job to go in and try to tone down whatever a previous homeowner may have started, but maybe not quite finished throughout the home. And so being able to bring in additional items to kind of coordinate with specific unique spaces is really key as well. So we see that quite often.
I love that.
Yeah. If the whole goal is to have somebody bring you in or another staging company in, but say these sellers just do not have the finances to bring a stager in, they feel like it's not the best use of their resource, are there a few little tips that they can do themselves? We tell them declutter all the time.
Yes.
But just with your expertise to say color-wise or placement-wise that they could do themselves with their things to help them.
I love that because I get that quite often. So home staging, let's just be very honest, is not a cheap service, right? And it shouldn't be. If you are getting a cheap service, be very wary when it comes to
get what you pay
home
for.
staging. Because you don't ever want to do anything that's going to hurt your listing, right? And sometimes if it's just not in the budget, then I would recommend that at the very minimal consult with a home staging professional. And many times for a very nominal fee, a home stager will come in and consult with your homeowner. One of the main areas of listing a home is key, and I think you've already touched in on this, is that a clean home goes very, very far. So I would always recommend that we do a deep cleaning of the home, that windows are washed and clean, and that you go ahead and don't be afraid to draw the blinds, draw back your drapes, allow the natural sun to come into your home. And this goes such a long ways, but not only in the photos, but also inducing a really positive positive atmosphere in
Yeah.
the home for your potential buyers. In regards to editing your home, I always, it doesn't cost anything to go ahead and start pre-packing
Yeah.
your home. Edit as much as 80% of your personal belongings. Allow the potential buyers to view your wall space.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of family photos, we all love the grandbabies, right? We all love pictures of Fido and our children growing up throughout the years. But in all honesty, let's get pre-packed. Let's allow some of that wall space to be viewed by your potential buyers. And you know why? Because some wall spaces will allow this overall room to look much larger than when you have a lot going on the walls.
That's great.
In addition to that, go ahead and start pre-packing some of your decor, the candy jar that, the
Grandma
aunt
passed down.
that grandma passed down to you, or the gravy dish that grandma gave you. Just go ahead and start pre-packing as much as you can, and especially in the kitchen and the bathrooms. Leave some spaces empty. Allow your potential buyers to see how much cabinet space you have, how much counter space you really do have. And then as far as decor, it's really important to choose one, maybe two colors max.
Okay.
If you have a rainbow
Outside of neutrals?
correct.
Okay, so neutral base, and then 1 to 2 colors.
And then choose 1 to 2 colors. If you have a rainbow of throw pillows on your couch, choose max 2 colors and go ahead and pack the other extras away.
I love how nicely you say that. Just go ahead.
Just edit this and pack
I
this.
will say, you can put those in your garage. It is okay, like those boxes and things that you're packing if
keep
you don't have space.
3 pieces in your living room.
Yeah.
Your couch, maybe 2 chairs, and, go ahead and leave a coffee table, something like that. Everything extra, just go ahead and get those in ready for the movers to pick up or something like that. But yeah, don't be afraid to expose your wall space, your floor space, cabinet space. It really will help your listing. And I promise you it'll be so much better for your photos on the MLS listing, and it will be very inviting for potential buyers to come. They will want to come see your home.
I always tell people, you obviously still live here, so you can live here, but you kind of want it to look like you don't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? The countertop, take your air fryer down and put it under the cabinet.
Yes.
Your espresso machine, I know you use it every day, specifically for those photos. Take that and put that away. We want the counters really bare, really clean. Like I said, little plant, something with some pop of color, depending on the kitchen. And then, you can still use your garage. Nobody really cares. We're not photographing garages. We're not usually photographing your hall closets, right? Those can be stuffed to the brim with your stuff, but you want the main areas to be very clean. I mean, even just removing a little trash can that you have that just sits on the side, it's very functional. So, but for selling your house, it can really cause, that doesn't look good right there, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely want to educate them to be very minimalist if you can.
Yes, absolutely.
But you do still live there.
I just say live minimalistic.
Yeah.
That is my life motto.
That's a good life hack right there.
Have you ever, this occurred to me while we were talking, have you ever staged a home, probably not a vacant home, but maybe partnered with the homeowner, and they loved it so much they decided maybe they didn't need to move or want to move? I helped my mom sell her home this summer, and my husband and I actually went in there and did some DIY stuff, and then I'm just minimalistic in my decor and in my way, and I told her, same thing, like we're saying here, strip it way back, all that kind of stuff. And we did. And that last month and a half that she lived there while we were selling it, she's like, it's so nice. I'm like,
move.
I know. The structure
You could have been living this way all
exactly.
along.
I'm like, I tried. But have you ever experienced that where you went in and you did something and it kind of shifted maybe their thought process around it or
Shelby,
selling?
it happens all the time. all the time. And I've had, a couple of real estate agents as you kind of a little dangerous to my listings because we really want to sell this home. So
like, don't make it too great.
We don't want the homeowner to change their mind, right? But I tell you what it does do. Yes, it does happen. I cannot tell you how many times I've had a real estate agent tell me, my homeowner now does not want to sell their home. Or the homeowner just flat out tells me, why do I need to move? I just stay here. But I've never had anyone not sell.
Yeah, but they have the thought. They're like, wait.
They definitely feel that way. Yeah. And that is like probably one of the best compliments that I can receive, right? And that's what we're there for. We're there to help the homeowner, have a new vision on not the difference between the home styling, right, is that it's more catered to their personal likes and dislikes. The home staging, we're really wanting to highlight the home as a marketing process, right? And so that really is what we're in the business of doing. So it's very helpful for the homeowner to understand how, or actually to see it in action, how much the home staging service will benefit their listing. And so we do run into that quite often, but I've never had anyone pull their listing because of my service.
Well, sometimes they might not need to move, right? Yeah. I think often we can just throw the baby out with the bathwater and it's like, I just need a new house. Yeah. Well, do you need a new house? Yeah. Or do you need to refresh and declutter, organize, get some really tasteful pieces of furniture that all of a sudden it changes the way you feel, going back to the emotional aspect, changes the way you feel in your home. And maybe the home that you live in currently, you could spend a few $1,000s. You could knock out a wall, you could add this, and then that home could still be your home for the next 5 to 10 years, right? I always tell people it's not about just getting the house sold. It's about the person and what they need. Yeah. And so I love the idea of, if you feel a little stuck, maybe you need to sell, or maybe you could do some other things.
It's like love it or list it.
Sure. Yeah. Get to know your house. And we were just doing an episode with a mold specialist. And she said that comment, you need to know your home. Yes. And I think sometimes when you've lived in it for a long time, your stuff starts to acquire. It can start to feel like we just need another space. And so it can just be a way to like have a home stager come in and maybe do a consultation for a less fee, where they can come in and help you visualize maybe that pantry space. Or, I mean, you've done organizing stuff, and it's like it can really help people with if they can't move right now, or it's not really about the house, it's more about the way the house is currently structured. Sure. Then you can really help people.
And I feel like sometimes we all need that outside help or view, like fresh wardrobe, fresh, whatever that might be in your life. Yeah. So I actually love that idea as a little different service. Yeah. But I just thought, I was like, I wonder if she's ever done it. And they're just, because I know I've walked into some incredibly beautiful staged homes where I'm like, I just want the whole package. Like, give me every bit of it. So
one thing I will say is that something that was new for me that I came across just recently is that we did stage a vacant home, and it sold very quickly. But along with it, we did some of the make-ready items. So we came in and did some touch-up painting, and we changed out some light fixtures just to help modernize the home a little bit and give it a new feel and a new look. Well, it sold very quickly. I think within a couple of weeks they had an offer and they were already, just waiting for closing. Well, the neighbor saw how quickly the home moved, and they loved the updates that were done along with the staging, and they contacted the real estate agent to sell their own home. And so that was something that, I had never had a neighbor come in and say, oh, well, look how that home sold. I think I'm going to sell my home too. So that was very nice. And so now we're in the works with the neighbor as well, just right next door. That's so fun. It's inspiring. not only to the potential buyers, but the home sellers as well, being able to envision what they can do with their home or their next home. And then now we're starting to see also that it can be inspiring to the neighbors as well.
I love that. That's awesome.
Before we wrap up, we ask everyone that comes on the podcast. We actually forgot to ask today with Rachel.
I
with
feel like her
the
whole
mold.
thing was
It may have been too much. Talking about mold and horror stories had probably been too much. But do you have a staging story, whether it be the house or just the circumstance that sticks in your brain as just, this was pretty horrific? And I hope we never have to
We asked, we're like, what's your horror? We have had inspectors on. What's your horror story? Do you have one? You might not, but do you have anything that comes to mind that's like, we got in there and it didn't fit, or, I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you had anything
We have had a couple, not very many. I'm very happy to say that we haven't had very many horror stories, but I will tell you about one specific where we staged a home, and it was maybe 4 days later after staging, the real estate agent contacted me and says, did you move your furniture into the garage? And I thought it was a joke. And I thought, no, I would not move my furniture into the garage. He says, well, we've got a problem. You want to get out to the property. And so we got over there very quickly. And so, for some random reason, and we never realized why, but the entire staging furniture was moved into the garage.
And it was a vacant home?
It was a vacant home, yes.
I was expecting you to say that they just stole the furniture.
So luckily we haven't had that issue.
So it had to be the seller, right? Somebody.
We don't know. So there's a backstory to the home that was before it hit the market was actually rented out. So there may have been some bad history there with the previous tenants, and so now the homeowner was moving forward and selling the home. We're not really sure, and that is all really just assumption.
So did you just go in the garage and put it?
It was horrific for me. It really was,
that is horrific.
Actually, because I put so much of myself into each and every staging. We purposely design a staging for each home. Okay, we purposely choose decor and artwork and furniture and bedding. Everything is done on purpose, and it's done with our heart. I like to say I have a servant's heart, and it really shows, I believe, in our services. So it was very emotional for me. It was on a personal level, really, that our staging was moved into the garage after all of our hard work. It was a new low for me in my business. I had never experienced anything like that. But we were asked to restage the house.
There you go.
And
I right over.
Decided that I was going to take the high road, and we did. We did restage the home. Now, eventually we did, for security reasons, decided to destage early. And so I think that was a very smart move by the real estate agent. But that was one of the things that probably will always stay with me.
Yep.
My gosh.
But mainly what I take from that, my takeaway, is that we were still able to rise above and beyond the circumstances and still provide a beautiful staging for the homeowner and the real estate agent. So we're very happy about that. But
Wow.
Don't throw your home stagers items into the garage.
They don't go in the garage. Just leave them where they are.
That's not going to help you. Oh,
What
my
Lord.
Lord.
That was dumb. That was just a dumb move.
It probably does sound like either the tenant came back in and that was, or I could even see like maybe somebody else was trying to move into the home that shouldn't have been.
We've had that done too. We've had vagrants move into the home and sleep in our beds
That's nice.
use our towels.
Just a free little.
This is not a hotel.
Airbnb.
Here in this service.
It comes with the territory. You know, you have to. I think that it's really key to be able to, run with the punches, right? And just rise above it and move forward. How can you correct it? How do we move forward? And you don't look back. And so I think that's really important.
I love it.
Well, Victoria, thank you so much for being with
Thank
us.
you.
I absolutely love how you're approaching this business. You can definitely tell that there's investment and passion behind it, and not just, we're making money and whatever. I love that, because I think anybody that brings that passion, I know that I do, I know that Betty does to her work,
Sure.
you better serve those that you're working with. So I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing wisdom. And I hope that everybody that's listening got a little bit out of this. And if you're local in DFW and you're wanting to sell a home, you've got your realtors and you've got your stager. So if people are interested, how would they get in contact with you?
The best way to get in contact with Decluttering is to just call or text my cell phone. That is the best way. I do not have an answering service, so when you call my number, you get me.
I got you, and you answered, and you were over at the house the next day to do the consultation. She is on it.
That's right.
Well, we can put all that information in show notes so everybody can access it. Do you have a social media page as well?
We do. We have Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
And we also have a website as well. So, yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. You've been fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. This has been very fun.
Good. Well, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Bye, guys.
Bye.